feeling blessed today? Nobody feeling blessed like this. Y'all
Hey, you can pull it off and see it too. You good?
I've accomplished probably about 75% of what I want, and then the rest is just to see what happens in the next year.
My goal is never, I guess technically not a 5-year plan because I'm 19 and the goal has always been rich by 25. I put that everywhere. Like anytime I get to project myself onto other people, that's what I project out there. I want to be rich by 25. If we're going based off 5 years ago, I didn't see myself doing a lot of the things I actually needed to do. You know what I'm saying? Like people are like, oh, you dropped out of school. Like, are you going back? Like, maybe, but that doesn't define me. You know what I'm saying? I like to see how far I made it without school. You know what I mean? I think, 5 years ago, if you would have asked me if I was gonna graduate high school, I would have told you no. You know what I'm saying? I definitely didn't see myself making it this far. I'm saying I'm living better, feeling better. Like my health is important to me. My finances are important to me. I've learned a lot of things, and most of it is self-taught. You know what I'm saying? So college is cool. College is great. I don't knock anybody who did it. It just wasn't for me. I'm finding myself trying to put myself in a position now to where I can.
Something that was on my mind, I was talking to London about the other day. So the principle of God being a kind, forgiving, and a compassionate God has never always quite sat well with me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, so God creates us, He puts us on the planet,
Right.
and He desires for us to worship Him, and for us to follow His orders, or then we have negative consequences. And that's just a really bare bones way of saying it. And to me, that feels like I haven't been given a choice. It feels like I've never, my parents have never told me to worship them. I respect my parents because of the things they've done for me, because of the things that I've seen, because, I love them. And for someone to approach me, if I'm thinking of God as a someone, obviously God's a spiritual entity.
Yeah.
But to me, it feels like I'm just supposed to worship you. You created me just to worship you. That feels
Selfish?
selfish.
Yeah.
It feels like I was created in vain.
Say that again.
That would make me feel like I was created in vain.
Yeah. Yeah.
My sole purpose is to come here and bow down to you.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like somebody.
And if I felt the deep need and like I was committed to it, I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, I respect my parents. People always say you're supposed to respect your parents. I respect my parents. I love my parents, and I've seen the things they've done for me. So it's easy for me to do that.
Yeah.
But for me to be like, I'm gonna get on my knees and I can't. It's really hard to make myself do that without it being insincere.
Here, but what is the fix for that?
There is one.
I hate to be like a pessimist, but I feel like I'm kind of the same view. I mean, even in the Bible, in Revelations, it talks about the end times. And it almost seems to be an expectation for that. So it seems like that already is the end point. Not that we shouldn't try. I mean, you see an animal limping on the side of the road. You don't just leave it because it's going to die. You get out and you try to help it and get it to safety. But that seems to be how we're trending. The fix.
Yep.
I can't even fix things in my whole life. I don't know how I'm supposed to fix the world.
So I give you an illustration, you guys. Blind man gets on the bus, right? This blind man is trying to find a seat on the bus, and this man gets up and gives his seat to this blind man on the bus.
Right.
What would you conclude about that man that gave up his seat to the blind man?
I would conclude off of that very quick basis that he's a kind person.
He's a kind person. But I only gave you a limited amount of the story. So let me finish the story, then you'll be able to draw a better conclusion. The man that gave up his seat to the blind man was the bus driver.
That's funny.
All right, so now you can draw a better conclusion that this man is not a good man, he's a wicked man.
Right.
Well, with more of the story, you can draw a better conclusion. So let me just see if we can give you guys more of the story about God so you can draw a better conclusion. Because the reason why people can't really draw a good conclusion about God, because they got what? Limited information.
Sure.
So let me give you, let's sum up quickly so you can draw a better conclusion about God. And I'm gonna give you a thing called the gospel. You ever heard, you know what the definition of the gospel means? All right, it basically means the good news. It basically means the good news. And the reason why the gospel means the good news is because in order for something to be good news, you got to hear the bad news first. So I'll give you the bad news first. So in the beginning, well, I'll let you start the story.
So, are you guys familiar with Adam and Eve, like the beginning story of creation?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically there's God creates Adam and he creates Eve, and then he places them into the garden, or they are in the garden. And so he tells them, he gives them a commandment. He says, don't eat of this fruit, this one fruit. There's all these other trees in the garden. You're not to eat of the fruit of this one tree. And then what do? They take of the fruit. It appeals to them. It makes sense to them. Like the serpent told them, like, oh, it will make one wise. So to them, it made sense. So they took of the fruit and they ate it. But what was that? Disobedience. And so that is what, their disobedience is really what brought sin into this world. And sin is really, you can break it down. There's an I in sin. It's when you do what you want to do, what I want to do, versus what God has called me to do. And so that sin just opened up the thing for sin to be in the world. And what does sin do? Brokenness. And so now we live in a broken world, and there's just so much going around us.
Yep.
I mean, what does sin really lead to? Sin leads to destruction.